him a shot to do what?
On today's pod, me and Bert will discuss whether Tua should actually be playing football, or does this organization care if he dies on the field or not? How happy will Matt LaFleur be when Aaron Rodgers finally decides to leave Green Bay, which it sounds like is the case. We'll give our predictions for wildcard weekend. We're finally here in the postseason. And with that will come the Bucket of Doom Playoff Eliminator Challenge. All that and more on Stuff About Sports next. Sports. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Stuff About Sports, presented by the Give Us a Shot Network. I am the Facebook felon Germ, still allowed on Facebook. It's been like 2 whole weeks, and I'm really proud of myself. That is my partner in crime, my brother from another, the prettier Corey, Bert. What's up, bro?
What's up, man? Exciting last week of football. I'll say that.
Exciting last week of football. It kind of got jump started early. Maybe not NFL, but college, but quickly after the first quarter, I know everybody was like, oh, halftime, it's over. No, it was over within 5 minutes of the game. 65-7, Georgia repeats over TCU, who probably had no business being in the playoff. TCU, for your pathetic performance, all you Horned Frogs out there should be banned from college football playoff contention for at least 4 years. That was an awful showing. It actually makes the talk of expansion. I know they're going to expand to 12 teams, but this is exactly what you don't want to happen. Alabama and Georgia should just play each other and only each other every football season in a best of 12. Because college, they play 12 games, right? Like it's 12 game season. It should just be Bama and Georgia, and they just face each other every week. And then whoever has the most wins is the champion. Nobody wants to see anybody else. Michigan disappointed me again. I'll never root for Jim Harbaugh again. Ohio State, whatever. I never liked you guys. It seems like
it was very unnatural to see this in college play, like the championship, like college championship game, right? I mean, you expect this in like week 2 college when you're playing like a non-conference team where it's just an absolute smackdown. But no, that happened in prime time, to say the least. So yeah, that was definitely just an absolute blowout. It's at what point are you like, yo, this isn't even fun to watch anymore? Like, should there be a mercy rule? Like,
there should be a mercy rule. Yeah, it should be a mercy rule. Think about all the hoopla they make over the college football championship, and you get a 65-7 drubbing. Yeah, put it on the poll. 65-7. Is that a slobber knocker, an ass kicking, or a good old fashioned beatdown? Let us know at Stuff About Sports on Instagram. All right, Bert, week 18, last week of the season. Usually not that exciting, but this week with all the circumstances, and there were some tight races. We got an awesome game to clinch a division, rare, the last week of the season. We had some drama. Our beloved adopted favorite team, Detroit Lions, almost made the playoffs. They did what they were supposed to do in beating the Green Bay Packers, but we already knew before the game they actually wouldn't be making the playoffs because the Los Angeles Rams could not defeat the Seattle Seahawks, which was a real bummer. But I did love Dan Campbell basically telling his team either we're going to the playoffs or they're not. Those are the only 2 choices. Love it.
And that's a Dan Campbell team. Whereas other teams probably, last game, you're playing for nothing. Some of the guys, you would think be like, all right, am I going to risk like serious injury if it's not going to affect it? But to play spoiler, and for that group of dogs to get out there and show Green Bay what is up in Green Bay, that I honestly, you love to see it, is what it comes down to. And then look, we've been Aaron Rodgers stands on this podcast. We have been in support of Aaron Rodgers in some instances, and unfortunately, what he showed this past season is his heart and his head ain't in it at Green Bay anymore. It's not. He doesn't look the same, despite any type of contract talks or anything else like that. So we may have seen the last of Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, and more on that to come later on. But that's one of those football games you love to watch. Almost as much as I love to watch a Commanders beatdown at the Cowboys. Oh my
gosh.
Oh so
that
God.
That leads us to week 18, most impressive, biggest disappointment. I mean, I don't know if the Commanders was your most impressive, but that was pretty damn impressive considering it was the third string quarterback. There was a lot of, for me personally, I was hurt to see Taylor Heineke get benched for Carson Wentz, then for Carson Wentz to go out there and lay the egg that he did. I thought for sure. I mean, I guess it didn't really matter because they were already eliminated. Apparently, Ron Rivera didn't know. But just like Taylor Heineke saved their season, and it was taken from him. Now, I get they dropped a few games, leading up to, but Taylor Heineke played well.
I was going to say, he was still playing well. I mean, you can't pin it on just one guy, right?
He had one bad half versus the best team in the NFC, the Niners, and it's who are undefeated since acquiring Christian McCaffrey halfway through the season. And then all of a sudden have the greatest quarterback of all time, Brock Purdy, out of nowhere. So, you're going to fault Taylor Heineke for not beating a red-hot Niners team. And his stats weren't that bad. I know he turned the ball over in critical points, but when you look at his stat line, outside of those turnovers, he played well. So, very impressive that the Commanders did that.
I think I want to go out on record and say that I can't stand Carson Wentz. I didn't, being a Giant fan, I didn't like him on the Eagles because he's on the Eagles, but I respected the talent that was Carson Wentz for the first half of that season before he got hurt. Yeah. And then, of course, that team, as solid as it was, carried them through the playoffs. And then you have, Big D, Nick Foles getting it done in the Super Bowl. But man, since then, it's just been nothing but inconsistency, mostly downs, never ups. But for some reason, clubs still give him a shot at being quarterback, and so much so it's stunting the growth of the likes of a Taylor Heineke too and stuff like that. So it's just, I don't know. I'm just really starting to not like him, and no fault to him. I'm also not liking the individuals who are putting him under center and still giving him a shot when he's done nothing to prove that he is a serviceable quarterback over the past 3-4 years. Right. So, and all injuries aside, it's just, why are we continuing to stick with the likes of Carson Wentz for other franchises if he's just not going to get the job done? As I guess where I'm at. I mean, I guess you could say the same about Nick Foles. I mean, the difference is Nick Foles played in the Super Bowl and won a championship. And yes, Wentz does have a ring, but like, my goodness, like in the Commanders specifically, who the better quarterback is, and Ron Rivera is just not. He's not doing it.
It's people are just enamored with the size, the athleticism, or the lack of, whatever they think that they see in him, the arm strength. It's just all the stuff that got him drafted out of North Dakota State. People hang on to that, and it's not there, man. It's over. The team was a lot better with Taylor Heineke, who has bounced around, played CFL, XFL. Just like, again, we talked about it a few weeks ago. So, like, you don't need a Carson Wentz. Trent Dilfer and Aaron Rodgers have the same amount of Super Bowls.
As they do. And Joe Flacco.
There's more, and they're all three different types of quarterbacks. There's more than one way you can win in this league. I know I use that analogy a lot, but it's literally true. It's true. There's more than one way to do it. If you have a guy like Taylor Heineke, yes, you have some limitations, but there's strengths there, man. Like, heart brings you a long way. Like, it saved their season. And the Jets kind of saw that with Mike White and other teams. The Seahawks are seeing it with Geno Smith, who got benched and waited his time and
got punched by a teammate and broke his jaw.
His jaw. Now he's statistically top 10 quarterback, flirting with the top 5. Like, he's had a really good year. Yeah. If Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow weren't so damn great, he'd probably be in the MVP conversation. But so shout out to Geno Smith and shout out to Taylor Heineke, who's a free agent. So if there's a team out there if I could ever think of one, the Jets could use
I
a
literally was about to say the Jets. Yeah, they can certainly use him a lot better than that Zach Wilson doof.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wild stat I saw today on Axios, since we're talking quarterbacks and the round robin that has been quarterbacks in the NFL this season, a new single season record, 69 different quarterbacks have started throughout the course of the season. Only 10 teams had the same starter, and 13 teams this year had at least 3 different starters. That is just incredible.
That's embarrassing.
It's wild, right? I mean, look, a lot of which had to do with injury, but still, like 13 teams starting at least 3 quarterbacks. And of course, look, you saw it this past weekend. There were teams that were resting their starters that obviously fluffed those numbers a tad, but not by much.
Yeah. What team started like 3 quarterbacks 3 weeks in a row? Like there was one of the teams. It might have been the Jets, because who knows, but it could have been the Colts, could have been anybody. That Jeff Saturday experiment. I mean,
Jesus
Christ.
Look, if anybody knew how it was going to go, it was everyone except for just who's like, oh, I played the game. No, we get it. You have, and you know football better than I do. I admit that, but I think everybody else was just like, okay, we were shocked the first week. But after that, it was like, oh, well, this is going exactly how this planned. So
1-7, Jeff Saturday's start of his coaching career. Now, again, he came in halfway through the season. He doesn't have an off season. I don't know if they're going to retain him. They're going to interview him. They're going to give him a chance. I don't know what they're looking for. Understated that he's Jim Irsay's best friend. Maybe that helps him out. I don't know. But I feel like if you hire really good, like if the Colts could steal Ben Johnson from Detroit, and then maybe like a Brian Flores from Pittsburgh as the offensive and defensive coordinator, both who did excellent jobs this season with their teams, then Jeff Saturday could probably make a difference, because then all the heavy lifting can be done by his coordinators. But unless that, I mean, I don't know what they're looking for. So that's the only way he survives.
I mean, a lot of the heavy lifting was his coordinators anyways. I mean, you don't this was just as much a let's continue to sell ticket stunt as it was anything else. And you've got to think, for those guys who very well could have been an interim, to bring Jeff Saturday in, former football player, analyst, and best friend of the owner, in, has to be a little bit of a smack in the face too. Like, hey, I could be doing your job, and I am doing your job. You're just there. So who knows how that experiment's going to go, or if it's going to continue. I hope it doesn't. But moving on, I would say probably biggest disappointment for me is the Jets-Dolphins game. Good God, with playoff implications on the line, that's the game we get. But hey, congratulations, Fish fans. You guys are back in it. Strong showing from that division this year, much like the NFC East too. So yeah, I mean, can't wait to see what happens this weekend when they go against your Bills.
Limping into the playoffs is Miami. I mean, that you want to talk about a roller coaster. I mean, winning 5 straight, losing 5 straight, winning 3 straight, losing 3 to the point where like people were talking about firing Mike McDaniel if they didn't make the playoffs. I mean, that's to go from where they were. And a lot of people were writing off my Bills, who I'm going to give my most impressive to, just based on everything that's happened the past 6 days. With the game that wasn't with the Bengals, DeMar Hamlin flying back, dealing with that, waiting on bated breath for the news, then having to play a division rival to clinch, the number 2 seed
spot. Yeah, which let's not even go into that, NFL. Way to fuck that up even more. Like, Jesus.
I mean, you Chiefs fans that are in my DMs talking shit. Hey, there's an asterisk by that number 1 seed, by the way. That's ridiculous.
Oh, hell yeah. They were gifted it. The fact that the NFL said, we talked about it last week, they had the extra week to play with. They can push it. And I understand there is operational and budget logistics between who's going to play at what stadium. If that stadium has another conflict going on because nobody was supposed to be there, or if they're redoing turf or whatever have you, plus TV rights, what's going to conflict with that, crews for TV, everything else. I understand that. But my God, this seemed like the easiest possible option of, let's just cancel the game and rewrite what the playoffs are going to look like based off what we feel is necessary instead of going by the actual rules. Oh, and by the way, this dynasty team that all these doofs out there keep talking about that won 1 Super Bowl in the past 4 years. And yes, they've went to 2 of them consecutively, but you lost the other one. But just because you finish in the number 1 spot, You're now a dynasty, and now you're handed a number one, like literally handed. Like, here, this goes to you. Enjoy this number one seed yet again. I can't wait to watch them lose.
Even though both the teams that were vying for that number one seed beat you this season, but they go off, and so this is where the Bengals were upset when it comes to winning percentage. Like, just because they would have played a less game, that winning percentage would have went to them. They finished with more wins than the Ravens. So what's this coin toss shit? Like the NFL is just making up rules as they go, and I don't like that. Be consistent. It is what it is. I
also don't like that they put it out to a vote for all the owners when clearly none of the other owners are really going to give it. I get it's like the best possible option for them, and rightfully so. The only team opposed to it was the Bengals, and the organization was furious. Yeah, because it hurts them. Like it was so absolutely ridiculous. But we'll see a rematch between this last weekend, which, I mean, we'll go over predictions later, but I think we know where everybody's going to lean towards, especially watching what happened on Sunday. So.
For sure. My biggest disappointment is going to the Houston Texans, which are quite possibly the dumbest franchise in NFL history.
Yep.
What are you doing? You gave this fan base nothing to cheer for. All they had was the number one overall pick, and you cough it up. Now, the Bears are probably not going to trade Justin Fields, even though they should probably think about it, because the number one pick is not as valuable as Justin Fields is. And the number one overall pick isn't going to change anything, because even with Justin Fields, you guys were a bottom 3 team. So you trade Justin Fields because he's your most valuable commodity. You can get 3 first-round draft picks, and you can build around Bryce Young, who, if he's not better than Justin Fields, he's right around the same skill set, maybe a little different. Whatever he doesn't have in Justin Fields' athleticism, he definitely makes up in arm strength and arm talent. So do you want a more traditional quarterback that can actually throw the ball, or do you want Justin Fields, who kind of has to make it up as he goes along? I would, not saying that I would, but I would entertain it. So if you're thinking about it like that, then I guess it doesn't matter if they won it. But here's the other problem. That number one overall pick can get traded now away from you. If the Bears get a haul for it, they can keep Justin Fields, drop back in the draft, and grab multiple picks. And then a team that does need a quarterback, much like the Texans do, is going to get jumped now because they were foolish to win a game for a coach that got fired 3 minutes after the game ended. Sorry, guys. There's no such thing as pride in the NFL. It's called smarts. You need the number one overall pick. You guys suck. That winning that game doesn't change your destiny. It doesn't mean anything. I was dumbfounded that they won that game. And if I was a Texans fan, I would be furious.
Yeah.
And
well, this isn't the first time we've seen team pride get in the way of what logically would happen, which would be a number one pick. I think the Dolphins shot themselves in the foot a number of years ago in actually playing for something in the last game of the season when they were well out of it and on path to get maybe not the number one pick, but at least within the top 5 that they desperately needed. And look, we're not saying tank for, a certain at this point, I wouldn't even call the last game of the season tanking. Like, all you have to do is the season's over. If you want to lose to get a better draft spot, then lose. Like, there's my own personal opinion, there is no shame in that. And a lot of people are going to be like, well, where's the pride in winning? Well, win for what? What are you going to go out and try for? You're not doing anything after this weekend anyway, so you may as well make the team better for years to come. Why not? We're not saying to start tanking halfway through the season. That, I think, is completely disrespectful, and you give everybody else who you're playing an advantage. Now, the only time I would say it wouldn't be acceptable is if you could play spoiler, or if it aids the team the last weekend of the season that you're playing against, Yeah. In this case, no, nobody was coming out ahead. I mean, Jesus, it was the Colts and the Texans. They couldn't ask for a shittier matchup. But by the way, since you did mention the Bears real quick, I love that tweet that I think it was Carl that shared this week on our text thread. A tweet that, want to talk about a football tweet that didn't age well. On September 25th, this guy tweeted out, the experts said the Bears would only win 3 games all year. They've won 2 of their first 3. Do these seem experts feel the Bears will go 1-14 the rest of the way? Guess what? They actually did. Absolutely hilarious when you go back and look at stuff like that. Another biggest disappointment, and it's a huge one. Tom Brady finishes the season with a losing record for the first time in his career. And my God, when you look at the numbers, they look abysmal. And I understand they had already clinched, they're hosting a playoff game.
which is wild to begin with an 8-9 record. But my goodness, he didn't even throw for 100 on the day. It was absolutely insane, and to lose to the Falcons.
And they get rewarded by hosting a playoff game, which is another thing we'll talk about later. But they should reseed the playoffs, 100% reseed the playoffs. Dallas, even though we're not the biggest Dallas fans, should not be traveling to Tampa Bay and facing the Buccaneers in a playoff game. I'm
going to be honest with you. That's one of those games that I'm like, this could go either way. The odds are obviously like heavier in Dallas's, but like, I mean, Dallas is a football team that's played maybe one half of all of their games. Everything else that they either let fall. It's either the second half when they're coming out strong, or the first half and then they just end up being duds. And I get it. 12-5, but if you look at them and you actually, like you always say, if you actually watch the games, it's one of those where if you're going to Tampa to play an 8-9 team, regardless of how bad they may have looked, if I'm a Cowboy fan, thank God I'm not, but like if that's one of those things where like I know we should beat them, but I'm kind of nervous right now,
Yeah. Well, the Cowboys are going to cowboy it up. It may not be against the Bucs, but it'll be in the second round, if anything. But that's as far as they'll ever go because they're the Cowboys. And but a 12-5 team, normally a 12-5 record is going to get you the division. It's just they happen to have the best team in football in their division. So again, the better team should always host a playoff game. That's why reseed the playoffs. I would be fine with adding an 8th playoff team and eliminating first round buys and just going and then just 1 through 8, just like the NBA does. And then the top 4 teams get the home games. If all 4 teams come from the same division, so be it. They're not playing each other in the first round, so it doesn't matter. And then the higher seed just gets home field throughout. That's just the way it goes. And that's the way I would do it. But who knows? That'll put half the league in the playoffs. But yeah, whatever. Expansion equals money. But that's the way I would do it. So, Bert, I am taking the last few sips of my fast break coffee. And speaking of fast break, as you see on the scroll down there, that's not actually scrolling. I made it permanent so you can really see what's going on down there. You can go over to fastbreakcoffee.com. Get yourself a bag of our delicious coffee presented by the Give Us a Shot Network. Use the promo code GetMyFix for free shipping and a little bit of a discount. The guys who make those things were gracious enough because our coffee's so good. Very, very popular flavors. First Dew is very popular.
First Dew is one of my favorites for sure.
Love it. Midnight Oil is a really good one if you're a dark roast fan. And then we got Substitute Teacher for you. And then the warm up, which is what I'm drinking. I do enjoy the warm up. Good breakfast blend. Nice, bold flavor. So fastbreakcoffee.com. Promo code GetMyFix. All right. So the Dolphins, as we mentioned earlier, are limping into the playoffs, Bert.
Yeah.
We don't know who's going to start. It's probably not going to be Teddy Bridgewater, who's the second string quarterback, who broke his thumb or broke his hand or did something to himself. He's hurt. Skylar Thompson's a little banged up, but he's looking like the likely option. Tua is still in concussion protocol, who on paper has suffered 2 concussions this year. But if you've watched the games, he's probably on his 4th. If it was up to me, he should not play again this season, period.
Yeah.
Especially with this DeMar Hamlin stuff and everything that's been happening, if you are an organization that claims to care about your players, or if you're a league like the NFL who claims to care about its players, this kid cannot put on a uniform for the rest of the season. That just the optics are too bad. That just because it's the playoffs. And from the Dolphins, if they were home, I would think about it. If he can, and again, we're talking about if he passes concussion protocol legit. Yeah. But I'm not bringing him back against Buffalo, against that defense in Buffalo on that cold, hard-ass ground. No, thank you. That's another concussion waiting to happen. But to me, I think the Dolphins owe it to Tua to sit him against the Bills. And if somehow they beat the Bills, then we can talk about him coming back. But
if they sit Tua and they somehow beat the Bills, man, I'm afraid. I'm going to be afraid to text you. I don't know what I'm going to do. Actually, no, I'm going to have to drive to where you are to make sure you're good. I'm going to be like, bro, I'm going to be like, I'm on my way. Don't move.
Yeah. You'll find me on the bridge with a note. So
no. Yeah. Look, I think it comes down to 2 things. Obviously, and this is all hypothetical on if he clears. If he clears, doctors say he's good to go. 2 things are in my mind. One, I would leave it up to him. Does he want to play? And look, all athletes are going to be like, yeah, I'm good to go. Now, for those that know football and have watched football this year, he didn't have concussions. He had concussions.
Yeah.
One of which he was stumbling, looked like he just came out of a bar at 4 a.m. after a 24-hour bender from the night before, hopped up on everything under God's green or God's sun, so to speak. And then, exited the game. And then the other one, I mean, he was on the ground and his fingers were pointing in all different directions. He didn't know where he was. Like
he was throwing up gangs. He was throwing up gang signs, Bert. Like it was crazy.
Yeah, dude, it was crazy. So, look, the athlete in him is likely going to want to play, and you have to leave it up to him, right? This is what they sign up for. If he is cleared, so to speak, he's cleared. It's a tough spot for the organization because, yes, they may say, you know what, you're cleared, but you're not playing. Like, I know what the medical expert said, but you're not playing, because they also have to think, like, what's best for their organization. And not for nothing, concussions or not, Tua is the best option to go with. So, look, if he's cleared, I think he's playing, and I think that's the best option for the Dolphins, and it's what they're going to do. And this probably wouldn't be under so much scrutiny if we didn't have the Damar Hamlin thing going on and making sure we're within the best interest of the player. But also, these are adults. They're making decisions. How do you tell a grown man whose job it is to play quarterback to not play quarterback if he's cleared? It's just not going to happen. If he's able to play, if doctors say he's going to play, and you have to trust the medical experts.
Yeah, it's for him and for that organization who, again, they tried to replace him the last 2 years. They finally had something going, even though he was in and out of the lineup. But the Dolphins can't really afford this type of bad press. I mean, people kind of seem to forget, I think because they started off so hot, all the drama with Stephen Ross at the beginning in this past offseason, and all of the things with Brian Flores, and just a lot of the stuff that organization in the front office wise and the business side is tied to. And then you complicate it with the handling of Tua, where the coach admitted in a press conference twice that, yeah, he probably had a concussion, but we threw him out there anyway. It's like the whole thing is, I will be surprised if I'm surprised even now that the NFLPA or whoever's overseeing player health and wellness is not investigating the Dolphins. Who's clearing this guy? Like, how is he not cleared by the doctors during the game to go back out there, but then after the game, oh yeah, he did have a concussion. It turns out, like, I don't understand how that happens. If I'm a person whose job it is to oversee these things, because they have like third-party physicians and third-party doctors and third-party people who literally sit up there and say, hey, that player has to come out of the game because we think he has a concussion. That's not the teams. That's not the teams doing that. That's the third-party people. So where are they at? Like, what's happening here? Who's getting paid off? Like, I need answers.
That's the thing, right? Are they there to watch and say he's got to get pulled and evaluated, and then is there a third party doing the evaluation, or are they evaluated by team doctors who then goes to the third party is like, no, yeah, they're good? Because if it's based on team doctors, I'm telling you, and look, this isn't anything new in the NFL. This is something that's been going on for a while. If they can play, doc says, yeah, okay, give it a shot. I mean, there has never been a concern for well-being for the actual athlete. And never a doctor that says, if you don't want to play, you can't play, I'm not letting you go back out there, because they're grown men. Their decisions are themselves, regardless of how impactful it may be. So this should be looked at, because to your point, like, there's no reason why someone should be admitting that, they had a concussion, but they went back out on the field. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So, but hey, we could see it. We could see Tua out there, and he could get completely rocked again, and that may be it for him.
All right, Bert, is Aaron Rodgers, is this it? Is this it for, did Dan Campbell end Aaron Rodgers' career in Green Bay?
Man, I think in the literal sense, yes, because it was the last team he played, and he didn't make the playoffs as a result. But I mean, all season, this was something like I mentioned before. It just, you didn't see Aaron Rodgers that looked like he wanted to be there. It doesn't even look like he wants to be playing football anymore, to be honest with you. I don't know, whatever spiritual journey he's on, or whatever mushroom tea he's drinking lately. But it looks like he's just an absolute space cadet, and he's just not into competing anymore. people may tell me differently and how fired up he gets and how he's yelling at teammates and shit like that. I think we're just seeing frustration of someone who's being told he's good, he's great, he's putting up personal numbers. But I mean, in the grand scheme of being a team and actually being a champion and winning a championship, he's got one. That's it. Yeah. Not even a return appearance, just one, and nothing but losses. So tough to see. I mean, great quarterback, but yeah, at this point, I think this may be it for him in Green Bay.
Him and Matt LaFleur just clearly don't like each other. It's never worked
Well, we knew
out.
this in the offseason, too. I mean, it was flat out reported that there's trouble brewing. And then, of course, I thought he signed a contract extension or something was going on, and they paid him money. But so, I mean, he was sticking around and they were going to work out their differences. But as of right now, I think he's going to be going elsewhere.
Yeah, you can trade him after this year. I think a team like the Raiders, that'd be an interesting, maybe a Derek Carr for Aaron Rodgers swap. I don't know what the money's looking like, but I'm sure it's close enough where you could probably get it done. Maybe the Raiders might have to toss in something a little extra. That way you'll reunite Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. But that's even tricky.
The extension was what, a 3-year or 4-year extension that he got last year?
I think it was a 3-year.
Yeah, because let's see, earns $42 million. Yeah, it was. I think 2024.
I know he gets
this is last year.
Yeah, so I know he gets $50 million 2 years in a row, and I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be guaranteed. But
yeah. So he would have to be traded then.
He would have to be traded.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what you trade him for, and even now that I say the Raiders out loud, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense because Devontae Adams left because of Aaron Rodgers' little wishy-washy. Devontae Adams wants consistency. He wants to know who's there. So maybe like a Jimmy G or somebody like that. Maybe a Lamar Jackson. It probably makes more sense for Oakland or Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But so Aaron Rodgers, I don't know. I don't know where he could go. That's a better option, but everything else around Green Bay looks like they're tailor-made to start over with a different quarterback. They have a young stud receiver, 2 of them maybe. If Dobbs can kind of take a step, but Christian Watson's the real deal. The 2 running backs they have are the real deal. Their defense has been decent. So I think it's just one of those things where it's time to turn the page on Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers. They got a Super Bowl out of him. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever live. It's just, I think it's just time. It's just one of those things where he just needs to go somewhere.
Yeah, they need a reset. I mean, obviously anything, and I think we're seeing this more and more with athletes and star athletes too. When more of their off-field antics take up more of the press, and then they're still losing games. And you see this in other sports too with Kyrie and everything going on in baseball right now. Pick your player, to be honest with you, because it seems as though the media focuses a lot on off fields. And when that becomes more of a story than their on-field play, and it's mostly because they're losing. If everybody was winning, that wouldn't be a distraction whatsoever. But Mr. Space Cadet Aaron Rodgers hasn't been with it. And everything from, we'll go back to his remarks about vaccinations and anything else. And he just, look, man, when you're making all that noise off the field and you're not that good anymore, and you're not winning games, you're not winning championships, I mean, it's going to get to you. Look at Tom Brady. His divorce front and center when he was losing games. When he's winning games, nowhere to be found. So where would Aaron Rodgers go? I think that's the biggest question. What teams have, the options for him to go to him? That's something we have to take a longer look at, because in my head, I'm rifling through it. I don't even know. I don't even know where he would want to go to agree to a trade too.
There's not a place in my head that stands out. I would have said Denver.
Yeah.
Maybe if you get that, but I don't know.
They just paid Russ, so.
But I'm saying, that money, that's the trade, right? You got a $50 million quarterback on one side, and then whatever Russ is making, like that could be feasible.
Tell you what, if I'm a Packer fan, I'd rather the devil is far better than the devil you don't. And unfortunately, I mean, in this scenario, who Russ is. I mean, come on, abysmal. The only thing I can think of is if Tom Brady somehow retires, maybe he goes to the Bucs.
Yeah. I mean, whatever it is, it has to be a team that needs to win right now. And,
easily, yeah.
And so I don't know. Maybe the Titans. Are they Ryan Tannehill's not the guy? Maybe, but I don't know if they're willing, if they're ready to win right now. I know the Broncos are hiring They interviewed Sean Payton. Hey, I did a little research, Bert. Sean Payton, 152.89 in his career, 9-8 in the playoffs, four losing seasons, and 1 Super Bowl. I give you another coach, mystery coach, 155.97 for his career, 10-9 in the playoffs, 4 losing seasons, and 1 Super Bowl. Can you guess who that coach is? Because Sean Payton, you can agree, gets a lot of love.
He does.
Like, he's like, so can you take a wild guess who that coach, the other coach I just gave you those stats on?
A coach right now who's without a job?
No, he has a job right now.
Oh.
And they're in the playoffs right now.
Oh.
You'll never believe it.
It's not John Harbaugh, is it?
It's not John Harbaugh. It's Mike McCarthy. That's unbelievable that him and Sean Payton have basically an identical resume, and yet we shit on Mike McCarthy every chance we get. And Sean Payton is like some golden god guy who can do no wrong. So I'm a little off. I'm a little off the Sean Payton.
I don't feel bad about shitting on Mike McCarthy at all. That is a great point. Sean Payton got love. And I think before, obviously, a lot of his more recent comments before he retired, I think Drew Brees was just a more lovable quarterback and a lovable guy for that whole franchise. But yeah, man.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy, a lot of those stats, and that was the thing. Like, Mike McCarthy's like, oh, he had Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, but Sean Payton had Drew Brees. So, like, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's so weird how we do this thing with some of these coaches, and we'll always tolerate behavior from people we like versus people we don't like.
Yeah.
I mean, look at our network. Like, you guys would never be friends with a guy like me if you didn't know me. It's crazy.
Hey, that's not true.
No, that's not true. I'm okay. I'm decent. So speaking of coaching jobs, there's 5 openings, right?
Yeah.
We have Denver, we have Houston, we have Carolina, we have Arizona, and there's one more. Who am I thinking? Indianapolis.
Yes.
If you had to, we don't have to rank them. Just tell me what you think is the best job to go get.
The Arizona job, easily. They
think so?
They have the talent there. You have a look. Regardless of what you think, you have a quarterback you just paid who has potential with the right coach. I think we'll agree upon that. You have, DeAndre Hopkins. You have a fantastic running back too. I just think you have a lot of the net. Now, defensively, they need to fill some gaps. But, I mean, I originally thought, and as I said last year too, Denver, because why? They had the cap space. They had a younger team. They had a good core defense. But after watching this year, knowing who's your quarterback and how awful they played, man, I don't think there's any coach that can come in and fix them right away. I mean, all the potential is there, but they would need a Dan Campbell like coach to come in and get shit in order over into Denver. Indianapolis seems like a revolving door. They just don't think that they have an identity crisis right now. They don't know who they are. I mean, you got to figure it's a franchise that for years rallied around Peyton Manning. They had a great potential in an Andrew Luck that never came out. And then ever since, Andrew Luck decided to retire, they've gone through a crisis of who are we? Who's our quarterback? What's going on? We're not good. So, I mean, I'd have to say at this point in time, it's got to be Arizona. I was shocked when they fired Cliff, to be honest with you. Because I thought obviously he had a little bit more to give, but I mean, they felt that he had the talent to make something happen now, and unfortunately he didn't, and that's the business, right? I mean, shit, the Dolphins fired Brian Flores after winning seasons, so I mean, this is the new NFL.
Yeah, I thought about Arizona, but I mean, I'm not sold on Kyler. I've never been a big Kyler fan, and you know this. He's just, to me, he hasn't shown anything, and apparently Arizona's going to give him say in who the next coach is, which is ridiculous. The GM doesn't want to be there. He's stepped away from the team. They got coaches out there groping people in Mexico. Like, there's like so much, like that team, less to do with on the field. Now, DeAndre Hopkins, there's a report today that he doesn't want to be there no more. It's like there's a lot going on there. So when I looked at all these jobs, to me, there was one that stood out easily, and it was Carolina. They have a really good defense. They have really good, talented defensive players. They have good, talented offensive players. And because of the Christian McCaffrey trade, they went from having no draft picks to a bunch of good draft picks where they could probably sneak in a guy like Taylor Heineke to come in for the bridge and win some games. Maybe they can sign a veteran QB that can come in and help out and maybe draft one that can surprise a few folks. But the problem with them is they have no salary cap. So that's the one ding against them for next year. They're not going to have it. But they have good draft picks, and they already have good players. They have a really good defense that almost got them to the playoffs this year. So do you ride with Sam Darnold again? You got him under contract, whatever. Can you bring in a Taylor Heineke, somebody maybe a little bit better to push, have that security blanket? Maybe him and Darnold can kind of fight it out. But to me, Carolina, is probably a good choice. I would rather go there than deal with the theatrics of what's going on in Arizona. I think it's David Tepper. He's not the greatest GM, but he's the greatest owner, but he's not the worst either. So I like Carolina. Denver's going to be okay. People forget they had the most people on injury reserve all year. They had 14 starters on injured reserve. Not many people are going to succeed that way. Their best running back, Javonte Williams, was out all year with the ACL.
Yeah,
all three of their wide receivers were hurt and missed extended periods of time throughout the season, all at different times. And they lost a bunch of good defensive players. So I think they'll be okay. I think this season will be an aberration. I think they'll get it back together. It'll be interesting to see if they can lure Jim Harbaugh away, or somebody, maybe get one of these, new offensive coordinators that can utilize Russ's skill set. So we'll definitely see on that.
They got to bring back Russ's skill set and then utilize it. They have to.
Yeah.
That man, he needs to fix it. Just fix it, Russ.
Well, listen, Russ is winning in life because his wife Sierra is twerking in bathing suits in the snowy mountains of Colorado, which is amazing. And I don't care what anybody says about me, and I don't care about how bad I play. I get to go home to that every night. So good for me.
No, yeah, he's certainly winning life. Yeah, tons of money in the bank, professional athlete, and married to Sierra. Why not? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So you saw Micah Powers chime in on the comment section. Speaking of Mike Powers, he's doing the thing up there at the iHeartRadio studio with Fox Sports The Gambler, and you can catch The Divide live Friday nights. I believe they're on at 7 these days on Fox Sports The Gambler. Friday nights, 102.5 FM in Philadelphia and 104.1 FM in the Trenton markets. Check them out, man. They're doing really good stuff, and they're holding it down, Brees and everybody over at Fox.
A lot of pillow talk on that radio. A lot of pillow talk.
Hey, best pillow ever owned.
Best pillow ever.
I've ever owned. Bought it.
Hey, Mike Powers, pay us because that's a new segment on your show. Pillow talk. Yeah. Sponsored by PC Richard and Son.
100%. Now,
let's go.
We're making jokes, but PC Richard and Son is a great place to shop if you need anything. Really, they have everything up there. Particularly the stores in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, and Philadelphia, PA, on Cottman Ave. But they, I bought a pillow from there years ago before I moved down here, and I still have it. It's amazing. It's still firm. I can't have no soft pillows. My head is heavy. I can't.
Heavy as a head. Where's the crown, bro?
Yeah, I've got all this knowledge in here. Why do you think I had to shave my head? It's all this knowledge I got in here, man. It just weighs me right on down. So yeah, head on over to PC Richard and Son. You can check them out, PCRichardandSon.com, and The Divide live on Fox Sports, The Gambler. All right, Super Wildcard weekend. Got a lot of good games. The Eagles and Chiefs are not playing this weekend because they have first-round buys with an asterisk on the Chiefs. So, Bert, let's go ahead and predict these games. I don't have the schedule. I probably should have had that in front of me before I started.
You just want to know matchups? You want to know when
the matchups. Yeah, I just want to know matchups.
Look, NFC side of things, you got the boys going against the Bucks, Giants and Vikings, which I'm looking forward to, not just as a Giant fan, but I truly feel as though the Giants are going to win this game. We almost beat them in week 16, week 16. So why not do it again, back again in Minnesota? So honestly, let's go G-Men. And then, of course, San Francisco versus the Seahawks. I'm going to be honest with you. I think San Fran is going to blow through that entire division, even if my Giants make it to the next round. They just seem like an absolute unstoppable force. I would not be surprised if they went to the Super Bowl. I think they can easily steamroll the likes of course, Seattle this weekend, but the Vikings as well as the Eagles or Cowboys too. Man, they're just playing good ball. And then on the AFC side of things, we've got Chargers, Jags, Baltimore, and Bengals. And then, of course, your beloved Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I think 49ers are going to beat the brakes off of the Seahawks. I think that'll be the biggest blowout of the weekend itself. I am also going to roll with your Giants. Danny, me and you, I've had to talk you into it a little bit, but we've been primarily team Danny Dimes all season. I said trust the process, just like I've been telling you Lions fans out there, trust the process. And 9-8 season after starting 1-6 and almost making the playoffs is amazing. So I do think the Giants, but the Vikings are the scariest team this weekend because they're capable of putting 50 points up on you and blowing you out, or they're just going to lose one of those heartbreaking games. And it's not in prime time. So, Kirk Cousins, he's good for a good 430. He puts up numbers. So, and they're home. But I think I will roll with the Giants. I think the Giants have been just getting hot at the right time, and they'll be fine. And I know we talked about the Bucks, not deserving to host the home game, but I'm not going to bet on Tom Brady. I think of the Dallas Cowboys' luck's going to run out early this time. I'm going to roll with the Bucks. And
so I am too. Actually, I do think the Bucks are going to, for all intent and purpose, upset the Cowboys. I think Dallas is going to Dallas. And I mean, so they had a disadvantage because they have to travel even at a 12-5 versus an 8-9 team. I do. But as much as you love to hate Tom Brady and as much as it puts a little bit of a smile on my face to know that there's a little bit of an etch on his track record and knowing that he has one losing season, even though that losing season still got him into the playoffs, man, you can't count Tom Brady out in a postseason. If he's going to do it at the number 1 seed, he's going to do it at number 2 seed. He can sure as shit do it as a wild card team. So I honestly think the Bucks are over the Cowboys too. I feel bad for Ty Shan. I know Shan's a Buck fan, but he rolled with the boys a lot this bucket of season. So
carried him through.
Mentally tough for him, I think.
Yeah, I know a little part of him. I know he was going to talk a lot of shit, but a little part of him is going to be sad that Dallas is out of here because of his Bucks. On the AFC side of things, I'm on the Jags bandwagon, man. I'm rolling with the Jags. So I'm going to go with the Jags, the Bills, and the Bengals. In that order. So so that's the show picks. We'll see how we do, and then we'll be back next week. And before we get to the Bucket of Doom Playoff Eliminator Challenge, I got 5 observations, Bert. Let's quick. We'll run through them. Number 5, Dallas stinks. Losing to the Commanders, and it dawned on me that Dallas wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for Cooper Rush going 4-1. He should never have to buy a beer in Dallas again. I'm totally convinced that Dallas wouldn't even made the playoffs if it wasn't for Cooper Rush. So that's my number 5 observation. Dallas stinks. Number 4, Dan Campbell's building something special in Detroit. Bert, it's absolutely criminal that America, the home of the free, land of the brave, or whatever the saying is not going to get to root for the Detroit Lions in the playoffs this year. But don't worry, guys, it's coming. Again, to quote the immortal Dan Campbell, either we're going or they're not. That is my new slogan in life. I love that attitude. I love it.
Man, you almost think like had the stars in line and they had gotten in, they'd be scared.
They could make it to the NFC Championship game, and I wouldn't blink an eye. I would be confident in picking them to get to the NFC title game, 100%. Number 3, Doug Peterson or Dog Peterson, because that man got that dog in him. The way he just coached his team. Now the Jags are basically the de facto Lions. The only difference is they started 2-6 and finished the season 7-2. So basically 1 game better than the Lions all year, and it still came down to the wire, but at least they got to control their destiny and they won their game. The Lions easily could have been in that situation if they would have won. Again, they had a close game, a 35-38 game, first game of the season of the Eagles. Imagine if they would have won that one. They could have been in the same position as the Lions and made it into the playoffs. But again,
I mean, take a look at a number of their games. Their Thanksgiving Day game too came down to the wire
against the Bills. So again, when we talked about the Lions last season and the past since Dan Campbell's gotten there, what you're looking for is linear progression, just getting better, whether that's a small step or a big step every year. This year just happened to be a big step, going from whatever they were 4 and whatever last year to 9-8 is amazing, and knocking on the playoffs. That team is only going to get better. So shout out to Dan Campbell and them. Number 2, Bert, The Houston Texans have to be the dumbest franchise in NFL history. We talked about this earlier. Not getting the number 1 pick is unbelievably stupid, and that franchise probably should just get moved. I know every year we want the Seattle Supersonics to come back to the NBA. The Houston Texans should be taken out of the NBA and then given to the NFL and given to the NBA to bring back the Supersonics. That's how bad they are. We don't even want you in the sport anymore. We don't want to move you to a different city.
Honestly, they're a forgettable team. Like, I mean, yeah.
If the Texans disappeared, put it on the poll. If the Texans disappeared tomorrow, would you miss them? Number 1, Bert, Joe Burrow is the coolest, baddest, most gangster quarterback in NFL history.
Yeah, he's Joe Cool. And for being 3 years in, I mean, look, we knew this at year 1, even with the injury. Year 2, he goes to the Super Bowl. Year 3, he still seems calm, cool, collected, man. I think so. He's Joe Cool.
Did you see this quote when they asked him, this about his Super Bowl window? His response was simply, "The window is my whole career. As long as I'm here, our window is always open."
Love it.
I love that.
Love it.
That shit is the most gangsterish shit I've ever heard. And it sucks that he's gonna, that he's in the AFC. So we're gonna have to go through him, or they have to we're gonna have to play each other, and when it matters. And I love Joe Burrow, man.
Man, I want to do something with that much confidence in my life. Like, I'd be happy just to order something at a restaurant with that much confidence. It just radiates off of him.
I literally go to a restaurant and I look through the menu 3 or 4 times, like the items are going to change. I make up my mind on something, and when the waitress comes, I order something completely different. Always. I lack the confidence. It just disappears from my body every time. But yeah, Joe Burrow that's amazing that he did that. So that's hilarious. All right, so Bucket of Doom Playoff Eliminator Challenge. For those who are not familiar, there's a lot of returning people who wanted to do it this year. So it's basically a suicide pool, and we'll pick helmets every year or every week until there's a Super Bowl champion crowned, and you'll get a bunch of gifts from the Give Us a Shot Network. So first up is JT from JT and the Don. He will have the Miami Dolphins, and he's a Miami Dolphins fan.
There we go.
He's playing my Bills, so sorry for you. You're probably going to lose. Next up is the Don. He has the San Francisco 49ers. The Don is a Steelers fan, so shout out to him. Brandon DeWitt, former Bucket of Doom Playoff Eliminator Challenge champion, has the Jacksonville Jaguars. James Schneider, our homie James, she does a lot of good work. She used to work for the Commanders back when they were the racial slurs. She has the Seattle Seahawks. Chaos Kaz, my former military recruiter, has the Ravens. Hopefully with Lamar Jackson, but it doesn't sound like they will. Steve Zuccari, Sports Bet Steve, the Dallas Cowboys. He hates that because he's a Giants fan. Dwayne Marcus, Cincinnati Bengals. He loves Joe Burrow. All right. Joseph Lee Burrow, as he would say. Justin Marvel from This Just In. Kansas City Chiefs. He is awarded a bye. Good for you, bud. He's a Packers fan, so he's going to need that kind of, consoling. Patrick Hughes, Mets fan, big Mets fan on us. Got the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know what's his favorite football team, but he's a Mets fan, so I don't think it's going to be the Eagles.
But he got a bye, so he should be happy.
He has a bye. Josh Perez, shout out to him. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mike Sean McGurr, the Buffalo Bills. Congrats, buddy. You're going to win, I hope. Lawrence Whitaker, returning guy, has the Minnesota Vikings. Vintage Mets, Carlos, my man. The Chargers.
Oh, okay.
And that means J-Mac Customs, Jerome, who made that beautiful sign for me in the back, will have the New York Football Giants. Before we get out of here, Bert, I have some polls I want to update. We've been doing some polls lately. People have been asking me how come we haven't done polls, and so we did some, and here they are. Does Kansas City's number 1 seed have an asterisk on it? 73% of the people said yes. Is Joe Burrow the coolest quarterback in NFL history? 55% of the people said yes. Should the NFL reseed the playoffs based on winning percentage? 55% of the audience said no. They don't like that. How many votes?
Really?
45. Wow. Okay. Yeah. No. Okay. Should TCU be banned from college football for at least 4 years for their performance in the championship game? 80% of the audience said yes.
I mean, why not? Show up, don't even piss a drop. That's insane.
Have you ever met a Zach Wilson fan? 83% of the audience said no.
Man, let's pause it. Ever since Zach Wilson's coming out with these cocky ass comments, I just look at his face as being so punchable right now. It's like, 100%. You little brat. Like, who are you?
100%. That guy.
So what, you bang some moms and you start a couple football games and all of a sudden you think you're God? Okay.
Yeah, jeez. It's 65-7. This is from the beginning of the show. 65-7, a slobber knocker, ass kicking, or good old fashioned beat down. 77% of the audience, slobber knocker.
Oh yeah.
So those were the polls. Bert, do you have a game ball you want to give out?
I do. It's Coach Brian Daboll. What a season by the Giants, capped off by Giant fans being super excited about the potential this weekend and knowing that he has that locker room, he has that team, he has a re-energized Danny Dimes who's going to go in and absolutely, hopefully, trounce Minnesota and move on. Man, I thought about who I'm going to give the game ball to this week. And of course, look, DeMar Hamlin's definitely up there. He's out of the hospital. He's still getting tests done. He's out of the hospital in Cincy, back to Buffalo in a hospital getting tests done, but on the up and up. So he gets obviously an honorary game ball. That's not going to go away. But
for sure,
for me, just thinking about my expectations for the Giants before the season, and then during the season, and now afterwards, completely blown away and happy, and then just really excited that Giants playoff football is back. So it's got to go to coach and the team.
Yes, my game ball, obviously DeMar Hamlin gets the eternal game ball. That's in the Game Ball Hall of Fame. DeMar Hamlin, shout out to him. We've been talking about him all week. I was really worried about him, especially every day that passed that he didn't wake up. I got more and more nervous, but praise God, or whatever deity you pray to. He was able to survive and looks like he's on the mend. They are hoping, he's hoping that he gets to at least be on the sideline for the game on Sunday. So we'll see how that goes. I know that his lungs took a pretty good beating. My game ball is going to Coach Mike Tomlin. Even though they didn't make the playoffs, 16 straight seasons without a losing record is an amazing accomplishment. I don't think he gets enough credit for greatest coaches of all time. I think he gets recognized as a great coach. I don't think he ever gets put into the upper echelon tier 1 coaches as I think he should. 16 straight seasons without a losing record. Now, there's a couple 8-8 sprinkled in there, but again, to not have a losing season ever in 16 years in the same job in a sport that particularly for black coaches is not very forgiving, where you don't get that long of a leash. A lot of that has to do with the franchise that he's employed by, the Steelers. That's just the way they do business. I think they've had 3 coaches in the last 80 years. So it's just the way they've.
I mean, they continuously having winning seasons certainly helps too. Yeah.
Well, that too. Yeah. 16 straight years without a losing season. Mike Tomlin definitely gets the game ball. They almost squeaked into the playoffs too, which would have been amazing considering how they started the season, where you thought, oh my God, this is bad. But Kenny Pickett looks like he's the real deal, man. Like that guy proved me wrong. I was not impressed by Kenny Pickett at all. And yet he's proven to be one of those dudes. So we'll see what happens next week. Good luck to everybody in the Bucket of Doom Playoff Eliminator Challenge. Bert, you got any final things for us?
I am good. Thanks. Thanks again for those listening, and for those that are going to listen, on demand on where you get your podcasts. So yeah, we'll see you next week.
I can't wait for the most beautiful hair matchup between Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert this Sunday.
Yes, the flow. It's there.
Oh my gosh, man. Justin Herbert, he looks like eternal sunshine. Every time I see that guy, he just looks like rays of happiness. But you know where it doesn't shine? Hell.
Art
Briles.